500,000 children are born with HIV each year, and it's tearing apart the basic fabric of society in many developing countries. So in addition to human survival, we are also talking about global equity. Global action and serious political action is desperately needed to make the world a healthier and more equitable place. It's why the World Health Organization calls for better health for all. And if the unfairness and immorality of failure to act globally to help those less able to help themselves isn't sufficiently persuasive, let me make it more concrete for you. If global threats are not attacked where they arise, then they grow and they threaten us all. So TB, for example, is not just an immediate health emergency for the people living and dying with those illnesses in their own countries. Their inability to afford treatment is leading to growing rates of drug-resistant TB in the Western world as well. TB is back in Australia, and it's increasingly unresponsive to the barrage of heavy-duty antibiotics that we have available. So drug-resistant TB will and is spreading in Australia, and simply trying to treat infected individuals or even communities here is very well-meaning, but it's really putting our heads in the sand. Global health problems are threats to us as well, not only in health terms. These, the ongoing scourge of these diseases represent broader risks. Like other global inequities in health, not only do they decimate families and undermine economic productivity because the labour force is sick, they feed poverty and social alienation. They lead to violence. They lead to, ultimately, the destabilisation of whole countries. You think what millions and millions of orphans, people, this is the situation in Africa today. Millions of orphans basically trying to grow up and run their countries. Pretty difficult. And the destabilisation of these countries threatens us all. That's the nature of global threats. If you don't act on them where they arise, they represent serious threats to the rest of us. So, as the World Health Assembly argued in 1951, on top of all the other arguments, it's a matter of global equilibrium. It's the interconnectedness of global threats that means acting locally is not enough. We live in a global village. We have to deal with global threats by acting politically. And unless the world becomes a healthier and fairer place for all its citizens, we do nothing about increasing the security of all our people and improving the chances of those worst off. So what can make a difference? International sanctions, increased international aid, reform of international patenting laws to ensure drugs are actually affordable in poor countries. All of those things help. And well-targeted action in cyberspace is also the way to go. So if you really want to make a difference, make sure it's well-targeted political action. And I'd suggest do some of it in cyberspace. Go to Avert, nice little cyberspace spot, and make a difference to an AIDS orphan today. Thank you.
You know what, Meredith, I think you should continue to make a difference by joining Fran and being on one of the World Health Organization committees. That would be terrific, I think, don't you? She'd be a great advocate for us. Okay, and last but certainly not least, Stella Young for the negative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to make any apologies for not standing up. But I might point out our opponent's blatant disregard of our attempt to keep this debate physically equal. When asked to debate the issue at hand today, I was overwhelmed by how on earth I could possibly argue something that makes so much bloody sense. How on earth could I argue this, especially to you? And because it made so much sense, I had no idea what I was going to say. But I didn't think Rhonda would be too pleased if I got up here and just said, in the face of such enormous global threats, local action is a waste of time. Not. So I pulled my socks up and started thinking about why I know local action is important. Firstly, it can't exist without community. So when we think about community, what do we think of? Are we just part of the community in which we geographically reside? Or is it something more than that? Someone posed that question to me recently, and it got me thinking about the fact that I belong to a lot of communities. A community of people who go and see particular bands, a community of people who do their shopping at South Richmond Coles, a community of people who are a little bit obsessed with knitting. Oh, come on, I'm a cripple. Craft is my spiritual home. So, I'm a music lover. I live in Richmond. I like to knit. But what else defines my community? Is it the way I look? I went home to the small country town in which I grew up for Easter, and I was sporting a new haircut. And my dad said, Stell, looking a bit emo. Once I got over the shock that my father knows what an emo is, I said, Dad, don't be ridiculous. I can't be an emo. There's no wheelchair access to the steps of Flinders Street Station. But all jokes aside, a community I do have a strong connection to is the disability community. And I don't want to open the old debate about whether there is or isn't a disability community, but for me, there's something. When I pass another wheelchair user in the street, there's that nod of understanding. You know, that smile of recognition, that what up, brother, to my fellow wheelchair user. But I didn't always feel this way. As a young girl with a disability, I didn't think I was one of them. I wanted to be successful in exactly the same ways that my able-bodied peers wanted to be successful. And growing up in that small town, I didn't have any idea that someone with a disability could be those things. But I knew I could be those things, as long as I never admitted that I was one of you. But that all kind of fell apart when I discovered local action. I made friends with another girl who used a chair, and for me that was alright, because I shared a particular genetic trait with her, so I told myself I wasn't really making friends with the other side. But she was about to introduce me to the world of doing stuff about the things that I didn't like about the world. All of a sudden I was being carted off to International Day of People with a Disability barbecues and Women with Disabilities network meetings. And she was giving me books on the social model of disability and teaching me about the history of this fight. It was quite a realisation that I have the life I have because other people fought for me to have it. Now, I'm not trying to suck up to the adjudicator, but she is one of the people who fought for me. She did something that changed my place in the world. Spurred on by her own experience of a good education, and then her experience as a mother, passionate about her children having a quality education, Joan Kirner took on, in her role in Parliament, responsibility for all children in Victoria. I can remember my mum and dad sitting with me watching television one Saturday night, and a lady came on TV. She was on the ABC, so I knew it was supposed to be, a serious adult program. The lady was introduced and she came on stage, opened her mouth and sang "I Love Rock and Roll" at the top of her lungs, as we just saw. Mum and Dad started laughing and chatting about what a good stick Joan is.
Yeah, I've got one too, look.
Nice one. Excellent. Totally my people, Joan. And I asked
I can't knit.
Oh, then forget it. But I asked who this woman all dressed up in leather was. And my mum said, "She's Joan Kirner, and she's the reason you can go to school with other kids." I should have realised how important local action was then. Now that I'm older and slightly wiser, I not only feel an amazing connection to people who share my lived experience of disability, but I engage in local action every day. Sometimes with others, sometimes just by myself. When those ticket inspectors won't check my ticket on the train, I chase them.
She does too. She's amazing.
When they won't check my ticket going through the barrier, I sit quietly and patiently explain that I have rights and responsibilities as a citizen to buy a ticket. You'd think they'd be overhearing me yap by now. But I'm lucky enough to work at the museum, as Joan mentioned, where I engage with different communities every day. One of my favourite communities is the 3 to 12-year-old boy set, very dinosaur obsessed. To a 5-year-old boy, there is nothing better than a dinosaur. Dinosaurs are like women will be when he's 15. But But I do get to do more than just foster love of dinosaurs. At least once a day, way more on school holidays, a child asks me why I'm small and funny looking. I give them a straightforward explanation, and sometimes the conversation goes on. Like with the little girl who said, "You're little, just like that lady in The Incredibles." And I said, "Yes, I am." We had a bit of a chat about it, and she said, "I have some good news for you." And I said, "Oh, and what's your good news?" Thinking she was going to tell me she had a new cat or something. And she put her hand on my arm and she said, "I really like little people and also people who look a bit funny." I'd say that's very good news for us all. But our opposing team is right. There are threats, really big threats. Climate change is a huge threat. I know it's not going to solve the problem on its own, but I turned off my hairdryer at the switch this morning. And my kettle and my heater too. And the cynics will say that's not enough, and therefore it's not worth doing. One person doesn't make a difference. But we here in this room know differently. With solidarity, we will conquer. I look around this room and see that it's full to the brim of people who work in the community sector every day. Some who have done so for many years. It's not for the money or the glory, so why do we do it? Is it possible that local action is fun? That we do it because it gives us a sense that we're fighting for something? Perhaps we do it so that one day, even if they don't know we're responsible for it, someone else will be able to do something that we couldn't, and it will be because of us. How much fun would it be if we all throw up our hands and let these global threats sweep us away? Look at that. However charming our opposing team might be, trying to woo you with their talk of hopelessness, I urge you to think back to how you felt yesterday when you heard Tim Flannery speak. Or this morning when you heard Pat Turner speak. Did you feel hopeless? Did you feel like their work is a waste of time? I certainly didn't. And anyone who did, you're not my people either.
You're not my people either.
In closing, these challenges that we face are big, really big. But past generations have faced challenges too. 150 years ago, we couldn't imagine an Australia where women could vote. Now we can't imagine what a disaster it would be if we weren't allowed to. Mm-hmm. Let us all remember what Nelson Mandela said, and I wrote this before Fran Boehm's speech, so she totally stole my bit. But Nelson Mandela said, "Those who are willing to join hands can overcome the greatest challenges." Thank you.
And of course I wouldn't be influenced by your description of something very important in my and your life. I'd now like to introduce for the rebuttal, and you've got, I think we'll have to cut it down to 3, if you don't mind, Jennifer, and even if you do, so we can keep on time. Jennifer McGregor.
As I said, Rhonda told us we had to be funny, we had to be helpful, and on top of this, we had to argue an impossible position to win with this audience. She also really helpfully sent us last year's DVD so that, and I quote, we might get some tricks. Well, that was really helpful. We watched last year's debate and we discovered that the poor suckers who have to argue the position that you, the audience, and in particular the position that our Premier does not support, we're never going to win.
He's not here.
I still believe in the Premier's John. Last year, 2 exceptionally funny, entertaining and very helpful star performers clearly won against the team arguing for local voices and arguing against the power and value of government.
What, John
Surprise, surprise. No, he was on the other side.
No, was he?
Surprise, surprise. Despite a lacklustre and very unfunny performance, Joan decided that the people had voted 371 to 370 in favour of your own prejudices. That is, in favour of the power of local voices. You might like to note that Waleed Ali, who argued for the role of government, now has his own SBS comedy show, Salam Cafe. But you all thought John Roscombe was funnier and more persuasive. Shame on you! Meredith and I suspect that this is exactly what's going to happen today. Although we have obediently and faithfully followed our brief, we've done exactly what Rhonda told us to do. We have argued with devastating logic that your local action is a waste of time. It might even be immoral as it ignores the need for global equity. We've also been helpful. We've told you what you can do in the face of near certain destruction of the species, if not the planet. We've argued for global action, not local action. We've given a free plug for our community, sucked up very nicely, and given ideas for getting engaged in global action. And we've even given you a glimpse of the new world order. But we don't expect to win, so we've gone for bribery and corruption instead. So, number one, every single seat is wired. And remember, we're the ones who know about global terrorism, so watch it, guys. We are watching how you vote. And if this doesn't work, we've got another nice strategy. Our nice strategy is we've got a free prize. It's 3 things. You can get a free trip to a kindergarten of your choice from Meredith. You can get a free trip to any number of lectures from me. They're really boring, but never mind, you can come. And a really, really fantastic, valuable prize, a free copy of Alice Pung's new book, Growing Up Asian in Australia. This one is really worth something.
And really full of local action.
Vote for us. Vote for us. No, it's not. She hasn't read it. And Joan, watch yourself, girl. No playing favourites this year.
I think I should award Jennifer and Meredith the Order of the Peppermint. Just to show how unbiased I am. And now to rebut or sum up for the negative, Deb.
Other than Joan sitting on the right being neutral with the other side, and I received those discs too, but I need to tell Rhonda we didn't have a DVD to play it in our motel room, so total disadvantage about what happened last year. But it doesn't matter because local action is the most fundamental and crucial thing that all of us undertake. But what I want to do, I don't want to rebut the other team myself. I want to let the words of a group of young Aboriginal children rebut the other side. This DVD resource is a part of 3 parts. This is the second part of young children speaking to other young Aboriginal children whose mothers are in prison and telling them how they can survive and be safe while mum's there. We'll show you some local action in play.
This DVD we made is about keeping safe and being happy.
Especially if your mum is in prison.
Us black girls gotta be smart. Gotta look out for ourselves.
To keep safe from family violence and sexual assault.
So make sure you listen up now. Kids have rights.
The rainforest is green. The rainforest is dark. We can see ancient trees with moss on the bark. The rainforest is green. The rainforest is dark. We can see.
Be strong in yourself, see what you find. Be strong in your culture, strong in your mind. Be strong.
Family violence is like adults hitting each other or hitting kids. It can be people putting you down or yelling at you or making you feel bad inside. When kids hurt each other, that's family violence too.
It can be an adult or a big kid that touch your body in a wrong way.
They might touch your private parts, your breasts, your susus, your vagina, your junu, your penis, buru. This is never okay.
This is never okay.
It is against the law for adults to touch kids' private parts.
It's never okay.
It's called sexual assault.
Sometimes people say that bashing or touching kids' private parts is Aboriginal law. This is gammon. Family violence is not Aboriginal law. It's not our way and it hurts our mob. We say it's time to stop. Happy mob are a strong mob. Family violence makes us all weak. We've got to take steps to make our families happy and safe, to stay strong for the future. If we don't talk up now about physical, sexual and emotional abuse, the cycle of violence won't end.
Get together, moon man shines on the shore.
And we follow the traditional law.
things in our way. Blackfellow way is to look after each other.
So let local action speak for itself. Thank you.
Now, for your vote, I'll ask those who are voting for the affirmative team to applaud in a moment, and then after them, those who are voting for the negative team. So if you support the affirmative team, that it's about globalisation and local government. Local action is not important. Please. Okay, thank you. I've got my applausometer on. And if you're voting for the negative team, that is that it's about local action and without it, you can't make change. Please applaud. Now, who's got the cup? Oh, Sybil, can you present it down there, please?
No.
I just want to finish by thanking the participants. It was really terrific to hear the different points of view, and I still go with my original opening that it's two parts of the whole. Global action and local action are still two parts of the whole. And I want to thank the audience for their participation. And I have to say, Stella, your performance was outstanding, and I do wish you'd be my singing and drama coach. And may I finish with these words? I've talked about power at the start, and I want to finish with talking about just using the words those young people use so movingly. A happy mob is a strong mob. Now, you're all a happy mob. Let's go out and be a strong mob. Thank you.
And so I'm really honoured and absolutely delighted to welcome our really important speaker. Sometimes we do this. We put somebody on at this stage which is very hard for them, but it's really to make it interesting to the very end. And today's person is Kate Gilmore, the Executive Deputy Secretary-General of Amnesty International based in the UK. And Kate is actually an Aussie, so when I hear her on BBC News, which I often do during the night, I'm just so proud to have an Australian in this role in Amnesty on the international world stage. It's just wonderful for us. Before commencing her role in the International Secretariat in 2001, Kate left a very significant impression on this country as an innovator, a creator, and a woman who truly lives out her values through her work. She was the founder of the Centre Against Sexual Assault at the Royal Women's Hospital here in Melbourne. And she also helped to establish the Victorian Foundation for Survivors of Torture. So she later took up the role as Director of Amnesty in Australia before moving to the International Secretariat in London. So we're very pleased and proud to have her at our conference, such a major player in human rights on the world stage. Please welcome Kate Gilmore.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking the Wurundjeri people for the opportunity and privilege of being on their land. It's an enormous pleasure to be part of this remarkable gathering to celebrate Australian community in Australia and here in Moonee Ponds in particular. I get to stand here because of the generosity of Rhonda and Joe and the other organisers of the conference, and for that I'm very grateful. I hope you, as the audience at the end of 2 stimulating days, will also be kind to me and can tolerate this sort of last go at challenging ourselves to embrace community in all its power and possibility. I mean, to be honest, it's quite intimidating to be here. I mean, you're very impressive, both by sight, by presence, and by the authenticity and the authority, the power of what it is that you represent. So I wanted to pay honour to you today by, if I might, drawing some connections between what you do every single day, how you go about it, what you uphold as you go about it, and what others just like you are doing the world over. So, with any luck, I want to lay out this sort of idea of connection between us all, and to suggest, as indeed I think the debate just raised it, this connection is an opportunity and it's a threat. It's a responsibility and it's a right. Because it's not just interesting to talk about global connections between us all, it's factual. Those connections are there. What's really challenging is to surface them, to make a compelling and consequential case that our lives as community activists should be lived in a consciousness of connection with global community and with a global community of communities. Perhaps now more than ever, if we think of community only as a specific local or geographical construct, perhaps we're part of the problem. Because as the economy integrates and electronic communications stretch across national borders and flows of information and money speed up and intensify, power, influence, control is shifting. It's changing and relocating. It's delinking from the physical alone and the geographical only. The nation-state's power is shifting to business, shifting laterally to corporations, upwards to superstructure systems like the European Union, the International Monetary Fund, and downwards to civil society organisations. These sources of influence are acquiring new and more dispersed powers, bringing with them impacts on our lives and our life choices, and sometimes in ways that are unseen and therefore unaccountable. Globalisation means economic growth and wealth at breakneck speed for some, but leaves many more marginalised. Marginalised from their realisation of rights and from meaningful choices in life. We are at genuine risk in a global market economy. We are at genuine risk of security, financial and environmental integrations that outpace the possibility and capacity that we have for genuine social organising and for genuine social justice. In this world, the truth is, there isn't a single country or government or actor that can hope to resolve, or even a group of countries or actors that can hope to resolve on their own global problems. But nor can any one local community hope to hold back the tide, even though many are trying to. In fact, people the world over increasingly are impatient with government. They're demanding justice and freedom and accountability in small places and in large, in troubled times and in freedom, in creativity, under violence and in repression. People are insisting on their right to organise. And despite the efforts of governments to silence human rights defenders, social activists and others just like you, people power, people pressure remain and will be forces to be reckoned with. But in these times, and in the times ahead, there is a real human cost and casualty in separation, in division and in distinction, which too frequently have been the byproducts of many approaches to community. So pragmatically,